What a blessing that is.
You can take comfort in knowing that I had the same results. Never had to have a child go back on Ritalin. The caveat here again, the thing that you have to have everybody agree on, that the whole family has to be aware, have to educate the child that there is a connection between sugar and their negative behavior. Kids don't like to be different, as you know. Kids don't like to be behind in class, and kids don't like to be a non-learner. And so once they really get down deep inside of them, this knowledge that sugar is a very negative thing for them, when you get them at a young age, and the whole family does the same thing, it's very, very easy to get them on the right road and stay on the right road. My own son, who was, I guess about 6 years old when we figured this out for him, we started looking at health food stores. You're able to get hot dogs, for instance, without corn syrup in it. You get pure beef, pure chicken, pure turkey, pure lamb hot dogs. When he got to be 9 years old, he'd go out with the Cub Scouts, and I used to make brownies out of the roasted carob and out of rice flour and so forth, and he could take his brownies that had a nice pecan half on the top of each brownie and his hot dogs and go and do his thing with the Cub Scouts and know that he couldn't eat anybody else's hot dogs. He couldn't trade. He couldn't eat their Twinkies, but he could eat their brownies. And because they were so special, I had to start making more of these things so that the whole Cub Scout troop wanted them. It was fascinating to see the change in the whole troop.
We have a problem in the United States with prescribed drugs and children. Right now, it's reported, and I can believe it, that ADHD is America's #1 childhood psychiatric disorder. And in some areas of the country, the percentage of children that are taking Ritalin has reached 7-8%. Over 2 million children on this. I am absolutely convinced by the hundreds and hundreds of people that I've talked to that it is not necessary.
Oh, absolutely. And, of course, the reason, Max, is that per person in America, now this does not exclude children. It doesn't say per adult, so it says per person. There's 148 pounds of sugar per year consumed per person. Now, there's some poor kid out there eating 300 pounds because I don't eat any.
Right.
And my son doesn't eat any. I'm assuming yours doesn't. So there's 6 people out there who are eating 300 pounds of sugar per person. And it's pretty scary. And another fact, which is even scarier to me, according to experts, juvenile and childhood experts, 1/3 of American children are going to be in a juvenile court this year, 1996, because of behavioral problems, because of some kind of criminal behavior, whether it's burglarizing neighborhood houses or assault or murder or manslaughter, these kinds of things, destructive behavior. And you can attribute most of this really to this 148 pounds of sugar per kid and the fact that our foods are totally deficient in minerals, and that if you don't supplement these kids with lithium, chromium, and vanadium, zinc, sulfur, things like copper, magnesium, manganese, and so forth, they get all kinds of physical problems as well as mental ones. And I have to ask you, have you had any rebellion from parents who say, well, gosh, this is so expensive, our insurance will pay for the Ritalin, and we have to pay for the vitamins and minerals?
I really have not. I've found that parents really are anti-drug for children. They don't want the kids on drugs, and you're exactly right. These children do not want to take Ritalin. In fact, I am working with one school nurse whose job it is every day to stand at the head of this queue of children all lined up to take their meds, as they're called. And they have to be supervised, of course, because it's controlled substance. She says now that she actually has to put her fingers into their mouth to ensure that they are, in fact, taking Ritalin because they don't want the drug.
I hope she's washing her fingers between each child.
Well,
okay, Max, hang on. This is Dr. Joel Wallach, your host of the Wellness Hour, and we're going to be right back after this message.
Jerry, you're on live with Dr. Joe Wallach and Max James. Your question, please, Jerry.
I'm a judo coach, and I have several students that are obviously suffering from ADD. What kind of information can you give me on that?
As you know, Dr. Wallach, an awful lot of these children that are ADHD become great athletes because of the frustration and the energy that fills up inside them, the anger of having to deal with the problem on a daily basis. It certainly was the case with my son, and so we find a lot of ADHD children in judo classes, and they also become great entertainers. again, because of this energy. But 1 out of every 3 is going to drop out of school, and if they carry this into adulthood, the national statistics are that 1 out of every 10 will attempt suicide. So my recommendation is a couple of ounces of minerals each day for these children. We believe that the antioxidant is very important. They help clean up the free radical damage that's going on inside their little brains, and we combine that with ginkgo biloba. And then we think that the multi-enzymes to help them metabolize that sugar that they're going to get, we just can't seem to eliminate enough of it, is very important.
Okay, thank you. Does that help you out, Jerry?
Yeah, that helps me quite a bit, and I'm going to try it out with a couple of the students that I have in mind, and I will definitely let you know how it went.
Yeah, great. And of course, you want to have the parents go through those boxes of all the items that have sugar in it, or give them 10 cents for every different can, box, bottle, or bag that has sugar in it. You know, some incentive, and you'll be amazed. It'll be a lot of fun.
Right. Great. Appreciate it.
Okay, Jerry.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Max, if you had to have one recommendation for parents when they discover, usually parents discover on their own that there's a problem, or a teacher tells them. Personally, I like to keep them away from counselors and shrinks because they invariably direct them and convince the parent it's the right thing to do to get them on Ritalin. And I feel if the parents are really interested in the child, I give them the advice without suggesting that they go to a counselor or a shrink. How about yourself?
A major concern here over this child's self-esteem. It's a problem that can be dealt with, and it's going to require a great deal of patience and a tremendous amount of love for that child, but that I believe that the problem can be overcome without drugs, and that the problem can be overcome with nutrition. And number one, you must reduce the amount of sugar. Number two, because you cannot reduce all the sugar, you've got to do something about the negative impact of the sugar. And so we start just with that recommendation. Diet, diet, diet.
And as you point out, it's a lifelong process, and some get it and some don't. It's really a sad thing. And again, I attribute to the kids who don't get it is because the family is not willing to give up sugar in their own lives and give the support that's totally necessary for the kid and do the education that's necessary to have the child make the association between sugar and the negative behavior.
We've also had great experience, by the way, in going to the doctors. Not being a medical practitioner myself, I'm very careful, of course, when children are on prescribed drugs, and I suggest to the parents that they go to their doctor and tell the doctor what they want to do. Tell the doctor that they want to try an alternative. And Dr. Wallach, I simply have to say this, that there have been no long-term studies on the negative effects of Ritalin or Xylard or some of the others that are used. And it seems to me that there's something wrong with the picture that says we put adults in jail for possessing this drug, and yet we're forcing our children to take it on a daily basis. There weren't any pharmacies in the Garden of Eden, and I've just got to believe that this can be handled using natural supplementation.
You're absolutely right, and it's a matter of giving up that sugar, 148 pounds of sugar per kid per year, and supplementing them properly. And I've just seen such wonderful results with pills. It used to take me somewhere around anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks to see some real progress, because you can't absorb the elemental forms of minerals very well. Even children only would get 8 to 12%. But with minerals, I've had so many parents come back to me and say, hey, in 72 hours, this kid is just a different child. The teacher asked if this was the good twin. And I'm sure you've seen the same thing.
I have indeed. My brother is a doctor back in Memphis, Tennessee, and his children suffer from this malady, and they have seen results overnight. Often I hear by the next morning a perceptible change in behavior. It's truly a blessing, Dr. Wallach.
So people have everything to gain and nothing to lose by doing this.
Amen.
Absolutely. And we just want to thank you a lot, Max, for being with us.
Well, thank you for sharing this time with me.
Yes, and appreciate all your experience and hope that this works.
Max James has taken this mission upon himself to educate as many parents as he can. Please turn to Side B to hear more about God's recipe. During a recent phone session, parents of ADD children met with Dr. Chris Van Overen and Max James.
Bobby, would you mind leading us off?
Oh, not a bit.
Oh, fantastic.
I am so excited to be able to share the wonderful things that have happened to my daughter. She started showing signs of ADD when she was in first grade. And in second grade, she started out above level in reading and ended up with below level at the end of the year. There were a couple of other children in her classroom that also had the same problem as Katie. And between all of them mixed together, it was a pretty hectic classroom for the poor teacher. And by the end of the year, she was doing cartwheels in the back room and the whole 9 yards and not really learning anything. And she was also having social problems. She was having these fits of rage. She couldn't hold friends because of the rage that she was showing, and the rage was coming out at the family and on her sister. And she was just, poor thing, was in trouble all of the time. You'd ask her to do a specific task and go and check on her in about 10 or 15 minutes, and the poor little thing was in a trance. I mean, it was like she was staring off into space, and it's like, honey, why haven't you done what we asked you to do? You know, you've been in here for 15 minutes. No, Mom, I just walked in the room. And she was very honest. You know, you can tell when kids are fibbing, and she was very, very honest with the fact that she felt that she had just walked into the room. So this was long before I found these wonderful products, the multi-enzymes and such. We started working with a naturopath, and she did help us. She said that, you know, a lot of times it's with food allergies that these things occur. And so we did change her diet and so on and so forth, but when we started on the minerals and the enzymes and the proanthocyanidin product that has the ginkgo biloba for the brain, etc., my daughter just came up 100% better than just with changing her diet. And in 2 weeks, her teacher called me at home during the day. It scared me because I thought something had happened. And she said, Mrs. McEwen, I would like to know what it is that you're doing different with Katie. And I said, well, in what regard? You know, after having so many bad phone calls, you know, with a child with ADD, you kind of don't want to volunteer too much. Oh, gee, what have we done now? She was wonderful. She says, I don't know what you're doing with her and for her, but whatever it is, please don't stop. She says, please do more. She said, Katie is focusing in the classroom, and she is, her attitude towards the other children is changing, and she's calming down, and she's actually grasping onto concepts now. And I said, well, gosh, it's only been a couple of weeks since we started her on these new products, these natural healthcare products. And she said, wow, I don't care what it is that you've done. I am just so excited. She said, I'm really beginning to see what a wonderful child Katie is. And you told me that at the beginning of the year, that she was really a wonderful child, but because of these problems and stuff with her ADD, it's hard to get to know the real Katie like you have the chance to at home. And she says, I'm just so excited that I've had the chance to get to know the real Katie underneath the problem. She said, this is just wonderful. And the year has continued to progress, and she is just doing absolutely wonderful. She has several friends now. She's become quite popular in school, and she's doing much better on her homework. And we're still working with some of the backlashes of the ADD, but Katie is definitely a success story. And we just started her on these products, and so we haven't had her on them for an extreme amount of time before, you know, we're very pleased, thinking that she's just about cured from the ADD symptoms.
Oh, that's a fantastic story. Fantastic. Jackie, why don't you do the same? Just tell us what's happened in your special family with ADHD and nutritional supplements.
Okay. I have a son who is 14 right now, and he has had ADD since he was teeny. He was one of those kids that was hyperactive and couldn't sit still and loved to experiment and was always breaking everything in the house. We had trouble with the frustration mainly. Everything he tried to do was so hard for him, and he would get terribly frustrated. When he was learning to read, he would read a word fine one day and he wouldn't remember it the next. He couldn't remember the multiplication tables. When he was spelling, he'd drill and drill and drill, and then he wouldn't remember it the next day, and it made him so frustrated. And so usually with his schooling, he would do 10 or 15 minutes and get so frustrated, he would go out and jump on the trampoline. He's very good at that. And also another thing he used to do is, when he got really frustrated, he'd kind of almost roll up in a ball and say, I'm so dumb, I'm so dumb.